what's next and how to get prepared for what's next. Who would like to take that first? Paul?
Thank you, Bruce. So the data is growing, right? You continue to get more and more and more, and that's accelerating because there's so many other touch points now. I mean, you think of, God, there's going to be all the Internet of Things kind of data coming. You know, just think about how massive the data is growing, and the ability for you to have complete comprehension over your own data and the ability to drive the value for your members and your customers and your business gets actually amplified like by orders of magnitude when you can now start sharing that data with others. Whether it's third-party partners, whether it's vertically with folks that may be in the same line of business, maybe it's the folks that provide the car insurance when you're doing the car lending, things like that. And so you think you've got like a challenge right now on kind of harnessing what you have and driving the value from it. You need to really think an interconnected world is going to be with data sharing and how easy that is made by some of the tooling that's available to you now. And the future is always going to be in the ability to monetize your data. It may not just be your data, you might be enhancing it with third-party services, you might be combining it with those partners, but the value that's going to come out of that data is, to me, what all this is leading to, and that's just going to keep going. I think Snowflake has an awesome kind of data share globe with all the little lights that it's breathtaking. But that's where everything's headed, and I think a lot of the folks that we're working with right now are extremely concerned about how can they share data effectively but keep it secure and well governed. And you know, as I said earlier, you can't split data governance from data security. In the absence of one, neither will exist. And so you have to, you really have to understand where this thing's headed, and it is your biggest corporate IP asset is your data. Data on your members, data on your customers, the transactional data, the interactions you have, all the other stuff you're going to be able to collect. And then you're going to drop that into a much bigger data pool. And everybody involved in that is going to have different benefits from it, including the users and the customers. I mean, because we are the product, right? As individual users, we are the product. So I think the next thing is like after you get your house in order and you've been able to really maximize the value of data as an asset to your organization, the next step is, let me start looking at that QSO I work with, and is there a data sharing arrangement where I can contribute and I can get more? I mean, frankly, think about it this way. You've been, for all of you, everybody in banking, you guys have had your data sold back to you forever now. That's what the cores do, right? They aggregate it, they benchmark it, and then they sell you this really spiffy report. That's your data. So turn that value proposition around where now you're the purveyor of that. To what end, for what purpose, but that's where I think the next thing is. I mean, that's all I got to say about that, Bruce.
That's a lot, Paul. That's a lot. Thank you. James?
Do you mind if I jump in again more? Real quick? Sorry. James said it before, I love this. Stop moving your data around. And that was so cool. I've never heard it put that way. One of the things, and not to continue to sound like a Snowflake fanboy, but one of the cool things that I forgot to mention that drew me to Snowflake was this ease of data sharing. Back in the day, I had worked with some Dun & Bradstreet data for some B2B work I did, 10 or 15 years ago. And it's like, oh, you buy the data set, they, ship it to you either on a DVD or electronically, you download it, then you try to work with it, you try to get it into your warehouse, your database, and then you gotta, you get your value out of it, and then, 6 months later, you want a new fresh data set, and you go through that. Snowflake, you flip a switch. You do have to pay for a lot of the data sets, but you flip a switch and that data shows up and it's there and it's alive and it changes, and you don't have to really do much or anything with it or to it to get it to be useful. It's that way automatically. And with so many of us on Snowflake, either willfully or kind of being forced there, it does present an opportunity. It's something I didn't even think about. Well, it does present an opportunity for data sharing and sort of the power in numbers. How can we, and we all, I think Greg said it earlier, we're all, I think, on the same team here. Certainly in my organization, we believe that, we're not trying to steal the member from the next credit union over. Really, our competitors are Bank of America and TD Bank and the big guys, and we have value that we can provide over the big banks, and so can every other credit union and regional bank. And so I love the idea of teaming up together, easy data sharing, stop moving data around. I love that. Never thought of it, and that's my takeaway for today for sure.
James?
I think it's awesome you're a fanboy. This is genius. The check's in the mail. But no, well, to be quite honest, thank you. And I think, appreciate the kind words, but I think I would love to say that was my idea. The founders of Snowflake, Benoit and Thierry, who both had worked at Oracle, realized the power of not just creating a scalable database, but if you think about what is the financial services ecosystem predicated on? It's physical data movement. You said it, Paul. And the reality is, how do you stop that and simplify the process? Simplify access, where you're just getting simple change data capture of something instantaneous when it's ready, instead of waiting a 501 in a batch process, then all the ETL, the reconciliation. What can you do with all that time? Right? Time and its scarcity, that foundational principle, I think, again, that directly leads back to the outcomes we're looking for. So if we think about what's next, I think data sharing is something that we've obviously been foundational to Snowflake, and I think the ecosystem of those former data partners and others, and even the Bloombergs of the world, let's be extraordinarily clear, the most proprietary system on the planet. To many of the firms, I was working in investment banking, sales and trading departments, the most annoying thing in the world was $30,000 for what you were paying for, which was a fancy email system. But God bless them, they had made a fantastic product that everyone wanted, and it was the connectivity to your clients. It was that connective tissue between you and your client. That's why you had to pay 30 grand, whether I just used the email or the chat function, or I was using all of the cool analytics and data that were there. They even themselves have realized that they've had enough pressure from their clients, and you collectively all in this room have a voice, not just to say the Bloombergs of the world, but to those other banks in the boxes who we work with plenty of them, but they're seeing the light of that frictionless experience of how to get faster access to data and insight. It's your data, how do you wish to get access to it? So hopefully part of that whole praise of efficiency and productivity will bring me to the next subject, what I'm thinking about from, what's next, right? And it's only been said a couple times, but again, I think this next potential productivity and profitability miracle of Gen AI and LLMs, right? So let's talk about that for a second. First of all, what is it? I think AI has existed for a long time, right? Let's be extraordinarily clear. LLMs are essentially just breaking down the communication barrier between human beings and machines, giving us access to substantial amounts of compute that just is unfathomable, right? So, but it's not really, but we're moving from this autopilot world where I call Bank of America and they give me 5 choices. Kind of a crappy experience a lot of time, because by the time I tell them what I want, it says, say things like this, and I'm saying something different, and it keeps running me down a path I don't want to go to. I think many firms that we're talking with are trying to optimize what they used to do in AI from a sort of very autopilot to move to that co-pilot. Providing compute with context is the way I like to put it. So if I say I want to talk to someone, I don't say the word lending, but it recognizes them saying something close to it and it puts me in the right channel. Those are the types of things that people are working on. And I think the key thing for all of us to recognize is that obviously FSI and especially banking is a highly regulated world. How do you do all this magic, giving customers these really great tools with explainability? And the one thing I don't want to, and I guess we could do it here, I've spoken on 5 panels about some of this over the recent months. And every time I go into, of everyone here who's in a regulated institution, how many people let ChatGPT through their firewall? Anyone?
We started last month.
Wow, it's through the firewall. This is the first. This is great. Is it a sandbox only?
A big pop-up happened, comes up and says,
Yeah.
warning,
Yeah.
you are using an unauthorized tool.
Because of all of the hype, right? Let's think of hype cycles, right? We all seen the big S curve, right? The fast innovators, fast followers, and then peak of disillusionment and dropping down through the cycle of innovation, right? Higher interest rates and these technologies, I think what people are doing is focusing back on their core. Why did Meta's stock go up when they stopped talking about the metaverse? It was a $10 billion project that was yielding nothing, right? Doesn't mean it's not going to be cool in 10 years from now. But what you recognize is the core of your business. What creates your revenue? What brings you your clients? How do I utilize these cool new tools to reinforce my competitive moat in those areas that matter to my customers, right? So I could go on in a lot of different ways, but just for the broad context for everyone, and I think the reason why obviously everyone's board cares about this, right? Again, productivity and profitability. Investors are just like anyone else, right? We report to the boards report to the investors. Everybody has this infinite cycle of why this matters. But the reality is a lot less is being done versus that sits in the newspapers, for one. There is a lot of innovation going on. I think it's going to be a lot more augmentation. Will there be some repetitive redundancies? Hopefully some of the automations that 2004 report no longer will exist. Doesn't mean an LLM is going to solve it. But some of the most innovative customers that I've seen, especially within the banking industry, across front, middle, and back office processes, are exposing back to their customers the corpus of data in a secure governed data state, which we like to call Snowflake, that they can choose to bring either a proprietary LLM or a partner LLM within that governed state without moving the data around, that allows their customers to ask questions of it while the data stays in place. After all of the work of the security and governance that all these people in the room have done, you get the efficiency and the benefit that your customer experience is better because they get access to their data in a way that you're permissioning and governing and giving them entitlement access to. Versus the idea of, hey, let's go expose everything to ChatGPT, which may give you hallucinations, which may give you, you're spending, let's be very clear, there's a cost mechanism here as well, right? ChatGPT is really cool, but it doesn't prioritize well. It's gonna run you on a trillion plus nodes. That's really expensive. If you're trying to solve a fraud problem, or if you're trying to solve, how do you get yourself as a bank 80 to 90 to 95% accuracy? A human being will always have to look at the answer. No one wants to take the liability risk of being in the newspaper because we turned down people for loans. The ChatGPT said we should do it. That's a horrible answer, right? So I think just to bring all this back home, I think the innovation side of this is all great. We all feel behind. We're probably not. The key thing, again, when we work with customers, what's your cloud strategy? What's your foundational data strategy? Once you have your data house in order, if you choose to bring LLMs into it, don't have to move the data around. Hopefully you keep that secure governed data state for all of the great self-service analytics that Jared's talking about that people want, using the tools of your choice within the governed walls that you've created. So I think hopefully that's the path that we're seeing people take. And we're thrilled to have partners like yourselves to talk about it with and more later.
Thanks, James. Greg, over to you.
Yeah, so it's a perfect segue. Yeah, what James is talking about, if you weren't aware, is the Snowflake Cortex capability along with the NVIDIA partnership and being able to allow for large language model apps to be installed natively and securely and fine-tuned to your own first-party data. So, you know, the ChatGPT concerns today as it exists, think about having a ChatGPT type of experience for you and your stakeholders on top of your proprietary first-party data that's been trained and tuned to it. So kind of translate that to issues of when a report request comes in or a dashboard request comes in from one of the business lines. You have to decide whether or not, does the information already exist today in some existing report or some existing dashboard. It needs to now be prioritized. If it isn't, you need to have resources allocated. You've got a whole workflow and process for solving a business question that can now be answered, again, hype and conceptually, everything as it moves now can be answered by someone asking questions directly of the data. A huge efficiency improvement that I think you're going to be able to see in 2024 and have it come to a reality. So beyond that, right? So and combine that now with also being able to mix and commingle your tabular customer first-party data with unstructured data. So think about landing your loan documentation, your internal SOPs, your business vendor risk docs, your tax returns from your loan apps, and being able to mine and ask questions of that data. I think, the earnings call, Jimmy, that you mentioned, I think it was that Snowflake indicated that there's been a 17 times increase in the use of unstructured data in the platform year over year. So that kind of says to us, like, there is really an opportunity here to be able to leverage the tooling that Snowflake is bringing to the market that maybe is a use case that you haven't been able to take advantage of before, and do it securely, be able to train it, become that much more optimal and efficient within your organization. The last piece that, and I'm going to show you have to indulge me with a demo and have Bruce bring it up, is as you start to look and think about how you're going to allocate resources as you go down this journey, one of the things that's going to pay off that was just launched in public preview in the last 2 weeks, Microsoft's investment in OpenAI, right, like in becoming an early investor and thinking about the technology was so that they could introduce that type of ability to converse and automate actions within their Office suite of tools. So Power BI Copilot, again, is now no longer in private preview, it's in public preview. You'll now have the ability to give your end users or your analysts Power BI sitting on top of your first-party data and ask it to create a dashboard.
It's going to take a minute to get this working.
And Bruce, I'll give you a quick bridge.
Thank you.
Just one thing that resonated while Greg was speaking is just so I get to come from the business angle at Snowflake. We have a lot smarter technological people than myself. If we think about LLMs for a minute, and I think everyone wants to think about this, how we're seeing this, and I think how many of our customers are thinking about it too, is that it's still first innings in a lot of ways, but how do we know which one of these models is going to be good at what use case? Right? So part of the business value proposition is showing not only the ability to then access data to solve a particular business use case, but which LLM is the best one for it. And I think at this juncture, that's not known yet. So then how do you then try to then obviously open and expose the ability from which to have all those different choices of LLM models to get you to that 80 to 90 to 95% confidence that you want to have. So long story short, just want to add a little bit, give Bruce a bit of a piece.
Thank you for that passerelle, which is French for bridge. Bridge from data to action. Thank you for that passerelle.
Wow.
Quick note, Paul needs to catch a plane.
Sorry. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Paul.
Also, can I, one very, very quick anecdote. Very, very quick, sorry.
Yes.
For LLM, natural language processing, all that, it's making your data Googleable. As something that we have all done, we do it every day. Just the other day, I was like, I Googled, I was like, what was that Jake Gyllenhaal movie where he was building a rocket in his backyard? And Google not only knew the movie, but it wasn't even Jake Gyllenhaal, right? Who was it? Toby Maguire. I didn't even get it right. And Google knew, and that's what we're talking about with your data. Asking it questions, and not only does it know what you're talking about, but it knows what you even mean when you say something that you didn't even realize.
A Copilot in Power BI is empowering everyone to quickly find and share insights. For example, say I'm a sales analyst for a hotel and resorts company. Now, with Copilot in Power BI, I can simply describe the report I want to build and get insights in seconds. Maybe we need a new report to help us understand the profile of our customers, to gain insights into what is driving return visits to our properties. I just describe what I need, and Copilot will automatically analyze my data and create a new report based on my needs. Immediately, Copilot created a new Power BI report that is fully interactive, and I can start slicing and dicing my data to explore deeper. Copilot added the charts and slicers I requested, but also conveniently gives me options to adjust the output to get just what I'm looking for. For example, let's switch to ask for metrics and trends and a slightly different layout. Automatically, Copilot updates the report. Let's go ahead and keep this report page, but it goes much further. I can also ask analysis questions such as, what are the main drivers for repeat customer visits? Copilot responds by adding a new page to my report and uses Power BI's built-in advanced analysis capabilities for finding key influencers for variables in my data. Right away, I can see that customers who purchase spa visits are the most likely to be repeat visitors, followed by those who rented sports equipment. I can easily explore Power BI's key influencer visual further to learn more. I can even automatically see the most significant segments in my data just by clicking. Now let's go back to the first page and finish up our new report. I'm going to ask Copilot to make it look like our existing sales dashboard. Copilot automatically finds and references the dashboard to adjust my report with formatting and layout to match. Best of all, I can still interact directly with the Power BI report Copilot has created. So for example, if I wanted to manually change this line chart to add the reason customers were visiting, it's easy to do with just a few clicks. Let's also change the line chart to a ribbon chart to make the data really stand out. Finally, to make the report even easier for my team to understand, I'm going to ask Copilot to add a rich text description of my data right inside the report. This narrative summary is fully dynamic, and not only does Copilot highlight interesting insights from my data, but it provides citations from where in the report the data was taken. This summary will update every time the data is refreshed, or people filter the report with new insights based on the data. And just like that, in seconds, I've created a report that would have taken hours or days to do manually. Copilot, built on top of Azure OpenAI, is truly revolutionary for how we empower everyone to find and share insights.
So obviously this is a demo, right? So the data's been pre-built, pre-modeled. But I hope it helps demonstrate that the time to delivery, the development lifecycle for analytics with embedded generative AI in common tools will allow for significant improvements operationally, efficiently for you going forward. Where now, like your focus, if you adopt this type of capability, once it's available for everybody, the focus really should now tend to turn towards the data quality, the data modeling, right? So, and now you can actually put the onus back on your end users, right, to ask the questions that they need to have answered, and then iteratively work to make the enhancements and changes and adjustments to the analytics themselves, as opposed to feeling burdened that you have to come equipped with a bunch of different dashboards. Why not just start asking the questions that you're looking to have answered, knowing that you have the data modeled, that it's secure, that it's trusted and well governed, and you let the applications do the hard work for you.
I know, I assume some people in here, like me, the first time I saw that demo, I thought to myself, well, I'm out of a job. So I think another key here is, right, it's doing the legwork. It's not doing the data quality, and it's not doing the quality assurance necessarily. It's not doing the analysis. So, lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? So 10 people can look at a chart and draw 10 different conclusions. So our jobs now go a level higher, a level more strategic. Knowing what the AI is doing and being able to interpret it. And that is true throughout my career. I've shown charts to people and they've said, oh, I can't believe this is happening. This thing is happening. It's like, that's what you got out of that? That's not what it was saying at all. It was saying exactly the opposite of that. So it's now incumbent upon us to allow the AI to do the legwork, the foundational work, and then add our value on top of that.
Any concluding remarks as we close out the panel, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. James?
First of all, thank you. This has been a pleasure to be here and have these discussions. The only thing I did want to just piggyback on what Jared just mentioned. I would love to say I have some really cool, I'm still trying to channel Charlie Munger. I don't have the great answer, but I think Well, actually, here's one quote I'll leave you with, is from Mark Twain. What gets us into trouble is not what we don't know, it's what we know for sure that just ain't so. So I think the first thing that popped in my head when I was looking at that little demo, it gave me a summary at the end. I've had about 5 questions that popped in my mind. One of the first ones that said, is it accurate? Is what was actually written there accurate to what was actually in the report and the data? 2, the quality control out of all of that, right? And I think what it turns us into is how do we move up the information value chain? And moving from the administrative side to the enhanced level of thinking of decision making, right? I think one of the biggest areas that I get to work with, and I think I'm lucky enough to work with, is hear from credit rating agencies, card companies, major banks who might be working with merchant services areas, right? If you really think about it, what's the data that the Fed makes its interest rate decision on? It's delayed, it's typically inaccurate, massive changes come afterwards, everything's on a huge lag. We have demand information, whether it's coming from ADP reports, many of these underlying card companies are customers of ours who expose data of this real-time consumer trend data, right? What information are we putting into the ingestion side? Instead of doing the administrative work on wondering if the report's actually gonna run, having tools that help you with data quality, but then you get to do the critical thinking of the analysis of what comes out afterwards. And then how do we think about different data sets to enhance it, to create new derived insights, to actually put us ahead of where even Jay Powell is. And by the way, we can't all feel bad because they got it wrong massively. So if the Fed's getting it wrong, hopefully we have opportunities from which to enhance the work that we get to do in our own firms. These tools are only going to accelerate it. There will be certain places, right? It's maybe certain areas at massive banks who have departments who do BI tools that are thousands and thousands of people. But time and augmentation enhancement of what people get to do, and probably in this room, you probably have overworked, under-resourced. Hopefully some of this stuff can save it, but I think hopefully get you working on the cooler things that actually have more of a business impact, because you get to then enhance it with the data that you get to see fit. So, sorry for the ramble. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Jared, closing remarks?
Yeah, thanks again to everyone here. I hope everyone leaves, with some tools, to not feel as overwhelmed. Like how can we get this started? Knowing that we're all kind of co-conspirators here in this little scheme to get people to use data. So you have the tools and the resources. And again, I've seen it so many times in my career, just overwhelming. We've got so much data, we don't know what to do with it. Coming away, understanding the tools, the keys, where to start, where to focus your energy, and then really cultivating that momentum and growing that.
Thanks, Jared. Greg?
I'll just say thank you again, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it. We hope that you found some nuggets of informational value here in the conversation between Bruce and Jared in our panel discussion. I think as Jared mentioned, in terms of some of the places to start and where you are in your journey, I love the idea of data champions and finding those individuals in your organization that you can really latch onto from a collaboration standpoint to help get some of those wins, help demonstrate some of those business values. I think one of the things that I know that BI and information teams struggle with at regional community financial institutions is being able to quantify the power and impact that the current information and the data products that they produce actually have on the organization. So as long as you start kind of taking more of that mindset in terms of understanding and demonstrating the additional value and doing the follow-up with new products or new output that you create to kind of understand what the impact is, the more the support you're going to be able to get internally, whether from your data champions or your business lines, your stakeholders, to continue to move the needle and continue to move forward. But thank you again, everybody.
Thanks, Greg. So I'd like to